It's Wargamer. I'm your host, Rob, today for another faction reaction for the Disciples of Tzeentch.
Gene.
Oh no, the YouTube fans will be like, this isn't professional. I'm turning the first 5 seconds that you get to capture the YouTube audience. I failed. Oh, please do join us for the rest of the show, though. The Disciples of Tzeentch. This is Joe Krier. Some people may have seen him on the internet, and other people may have seen him at the back of emo shows crying. And Joe is here. Joe is here to talk about Disciples.
That's where I got my last name from, actually.
To do a Disciples of Tzeentch show where we're going to be talking about faction reaction like we have done for all of the other factions. Just a quick one, Joe. You well? How's things?
I'm good. I'm alive, man. Just hanging out at home, getting some painting done for a tournament this weekend. So
nice. But you're taking your Lumineth Realm Lords this weekend, right?
Oh yeah, it's still on the rabbit Naruto train.
Yeah,
good.
Take the foxes of joy is what they are. So, if you are watching this for the first time, don't forget this is a podcast as well. If you like podcasts, and also this is live on Twitch in front of an amazing audience. Malk, Shugo, sorry again, Ghost Runner TV, Gangster Pairs of Dice, Man Dollies, loads of great people, Freddy Fat Fingers. So they're all there live. You're going to ask some questions as we go through this. Now, Joe's played a lot of Disciples of Tzeentch. He also writes articles for Goonhammer on Age of Sigmar, so he's got some credence in the field, as they say. So, Joe, talk to me about Tzeentch in Age of Sigmar 2. How did they play? What were their play styles? What list did we see? What was strong?
So I know when they first dropped the easy mode, easy button that people started to jump to right away was the tournament conflagration, which was like they gave their whole army +1 rend. They took a whole bunch of flamers and pinks and shooting birds, and they just shot everyone off the table. I know when the book first dropped, you and I both kind of looked at the Host Arcanum right off the bat as like a really powerful play style, like especially once people got over the shock and awe of the flamers. Host Arcanum came around later on and to really stick it out towards the end as well. With some other faction, I think the only other faction that was playable, at least like on the top end competitively, was the Host Duplicatus, which had you just can't retreat from the whole army.
So
I know it was James.
Yeah, super competent army actually in. So the sub factions is what Joe's talking about. Really, there were 3 sub factions, and because they're quite well done, really, they change up your playstyle so significantly. So the archetypes that you had were like Joe was saying, you got +1 rend on all of your shooting attacks. So your flamers, and also which were very cheap at one point. Last GHB they went up to 140. They started out with 120, which is madness. And they also get bonuses against hordes as well. And then the pink fire even from Magical Finger, from the pink flame. Pink horrors. Yeah,
Pink horrors.
Oh my god, the pink horrors. So yeah,
are you okay?
I know, not today. It's too early. So that was what he's talking about. Rem 1 on all of that, and then with the Fate Master, you got the re-rolls, right? So that was a big one, and then Tzeentch Archeon was probably pretty famous.
Yeah, Tzeentch Archeon was really famous. The +1/+2 to hits for the flamers, the +1 to wound was really big. And then my play style that I brought to a few events, like when the 1 or 2 that I got to go to over the last year and a half with Tzeentch was it was Host Arcanum Change Host with Fate Weaver attached to it. And then I went back and forth on a few extra support heroes.
So just in case anyone doesn't know, remind us what Host Arcanum does.
Host Arcanum was the faction that focuses around Screamers in its lore and in some of its rules. So what would happen is your Screamers would become battle line, and you can spend a command point to make your Screamers +1 save and +1 rend, because normally they're 3 attacks, no rend, 1 damage, and a 5-up save. So that actually makes them kind of durable. Plus, being a -1 hit, being Tzeentch demons was really helpful, and they're very mobile. And once per game, you could summon a free pack of 6 of them. And you got turns 1, 3, and 5. You got an auto dispel without needing to roll dice or anything. You just had a dispel scroll 1, 3, and 5.
Which is wild when you add that to Kairos, who changes the dice roll. So like you could shut down a spell as well, or create like an unbind, and then Destiny dice to choose to unbind. Not including Lord of Change and Kairos, who the highest roll becomes the highest single dice on an unbinding attempt becomes the other one. So like the ability to shut down the opponent's magic phase in Host Arcanum might be the strongest available in Age of Sigmar, I would say.
The only one that could maybe fight it would be it's either Teclis or Nagash in the unbinding attempts, but even then, like the amount of control you had over someone else's like hero phase spell wise was immense, and that. So for my entire Tzeentch career, which has been the entire like since its first book to now, I thought the Curseling was bad. Like he was just a waste of points. Like back in the original Chain Host days, Lumineth Realm Lords Book 1 release, that because then we had Teclis, right? And protection of Teclis affects all friendly units within 18. So in Host Arcanum, your Curseling would just look at Teclis, tell him no to casting protection of Teclis, and then he would cast protection of Teclis, giving your whole Tzeentch army a 5-up Funeral Pain.
Amazing.
I never ended up playing against Teclis with Curseling, but he was in the list just in case.
I mean, there's going to be a lot of that. I mean, that might apply now. There's a lot, but we'll talk about that more in the future when we goes on to the winners and losers. So we had Tzeentch, like you can't. We were talking about Host Arcanum. So that pre-game move, but that pre-game move was so important on Big Papa Archeon himself, right? We saw that play a lot.
Yep. Was it a tournament in Australia that had like 12 of those same lists at the event?
Yeah. So that pre-game move, because it's a flying unit in Tzeentch, gets a pre-game move. Archeon obviously has Tzeentch keyword, and then you've got so many amazing spells which you don't really have use for on any other models in the Tzeentch book, like Shield of Fate, maybe.
The +1 to hit.
Yeah, but +1 to hit, +1 to wound, which is another spell called I can't remember. Infusion Arcanum. Infusion Arcanum.
Yep.
It doesn't. That's also obviously super useful as well on Archeon, as is most importantly
the Arcane Transformation too. +1 attack on his sword is really nice.
Yeah, and then also they would also use the agendas. So Tzeentch have agendas that you can do, and on a 9+ to charge, you get to add +1 attack profile to a unit for the rest of the game. That works pretty well on Big Papa A as well. So those are the Tzeentch. So this is the Tzeentch Host Arcanum list. We also saw some control lists, didn't we, from Host Duplicitous, where you can't retreat.
Yep, we saw the Chain Host really, really controlling. They'd have 10 to 20 pack of pinks, which is 50 to 100 wounds, as we've all heard by now, which you can't retreat from anything in the army. So I know James was running that faction with a whole bunch of spells that make spawn when they kill things. So you would not be able to retreat from the spawn that he would make on the corner of your unit. And then like you can teleport your pinks into range and charge them with a 9-inch fate dice and just hold down an entire army. With them not able to move, you have control of the entire board. And then for controlling, that was actually how my Host Arcanum list worked. It was I would scout, instead of Archeon, I would scout Fate Weaver and Lord of Change and cast spells into your table turn 1. And then they would walk back behind all my stuff and just bunker down after casting everything turn 1.
Interesting. So, okay. So, talk to me about the strengths and weaknesses for Tzeentch in 2. What were the strengths and were there weaknesses? Like, let's talk about the last year specifically.
Yeah. Unless you were bringing Archeon, there really wasn't any combat threat that the army had. So you would have to kind of pick. I guess depending on your list, you would pick if you wanted mortal wound hero phase damage, if you wanted shooting phase damage, or if you wanted combat damage. Like you'd have to pick specifically which one you're going to build into, because if you kind of go as a one of each, your list is going to be kind of spread out too thin in any one category. So like you either go heavy on the mortal wounds in the hero phase, or you go heavy in the shooting, or you go heavy in the combat, and that's kind of going to depict where your list is going to go.
So if I wanted to go into combat in Tzeentch, for instance, where would I have gone?
Usually that would have been like the Archeon lists, the Marauder, like adding Marauders. For a little while you could do Enlightened, but I believe they went up twice within like point wise in that for that last book. Yeah. So when you first had them, they were pretty cheap. Then they slowly crept up in points to getting higher than Eels, and we all know how that goes when you're trying to be a combat army. They were still mobile enough, but with like Skyfires being over 200 points and the combat Enlightened being close to, if not 200 points, with being a 5-up save, it just wasn't worth your while. So you'd switch over to Archeon for 800 points, would give you 20 wounds on a 3-up. and can kill pretty much anything he wants.
Yeah. Okay. And then, so if I wanted to go shooting in the last edition, where would I go?
Yep. So the Eternal Conflagration lists were heavy in either pinks, flamers, or exalted flamers, or a mix of all three of those. Usually in the Tzeentch host because they could one drop.
Yeah.
And 5 exalted flamers back in that list would kill Archaon in one shot, which is pretty cool.
Very cool, especially when you could run bricks of you could you could run bricks of exalted flamers as well, like a unit of 6. So if you took them down to 1, we saw Daniil do that at the Super Series super well. And you take them down to 1, you could use Fold Reality and potentially get all 5 of the exalted flamers back. So regenerating 500 points.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
Yeah, super
Ren
good.
2, teleporting, 18-inch shots, D3 damage apiece. Let's go.
It's very strong. And then, so that was combat. And then, if I wanted to do magic output, like I know, obviously, there's lots of spells, but where did the magic output actually come from specifically?
From what I saw the most, and from what I used the most, it was Fate Weaver, a Lord of Change, and the Change Caster. Shortly, I believe it was shortly after the summer GHB. They retconned the FAQ on the Change Caster, allowing him to cast as many times as he wants, as long as he's rolling a 9+. So giving the +1 to cast from the Lord of Change command ability, or a plus, is giving him reroll casting, and your Fate dice, he would have access to like 5 or 6 spells a turn. So he would give you 5 or 6 spells as long as you're rolling a 9+. And then Fate Weaver was a 3-cast wizard off the bat. With Cogs, he's a 4. And my favorite trick with the Cogs, or with Fate Weaver and a regular Lord of Change, was cast Cogs turn 1. Fate Weaver slows down time to get an extra spell, because Cogs used to only give +1 spell to one person. Instead of everyone within 6, it would give it to 1. Then on turn 2, Fate Weaver would slow down time again, get reroll saves and +1 cast, and then either him or the Lord of Change would eat it, so they'd remove it from the table. And then someone else would cast Cogs again, and then the other bird would slow down time, being able to cast an additional spell and reroll saves. Because the effect lasted until your next hero phase, not while the spell was up. So you could have both effects going at the same time.
Yeah, there's a lot.
So you'd have a 3-cast Lord of Change and a 4-cast Fate Weaver.
Yeah, and there were some good spells, right? You have access to, I think, there's 4... Like, there's 3 3d6... Sorry, so there's 3 1d6 mortal wound spell and a 4th flat 6 mortal wound spell available, like, straight off the bat. You've got the Law spell, you have the Changecaster spell, and then you've also got the Ogroid spell for 3d6 mortal wounds, and then you've also got a flat d6.
The 5th one is going to be the Changecaster, is going to be d6 as well.
Yes. Yeah, okay. I encountered him, sorry, the Changecaster's ones.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. So he's the 4th, and the Ogroid, and then the flat 6 ones. So, yeah, like, that's a lot of mortal wounds.
And the Lord of Change is on average 6 as well. With his 9 dice on 3s, he does on average about 6 or 7.
Yeah.
So yeah, you do a ton of mortal wounds all over the place.
Yeah, so that's really good. Okay, so playstyle. By the way, so just for everyone at home, obviously I do the Age of Sigmar Stat Center every Monday. Tzeentch were doing very, very well. Like they were always 60+%. Change host, like what lists featured. Just like we talked about Change host, whether they be in host duplicitors for a more control deck, which we generally saw more in team play. Tzeentch Archaon everywhere, all the time, with a Bray Shaman, just gunning it at your opponent, be like, can you handle this big boy? Also in Tzeentch, he's -1 to hit, which is mental, because you reroll 6s to hit against him. Like, we could talk about it all day. He's got a spell ignore, loads of mad stuff. And then we also saw, like Joe was talking about, Eternal Conflagration Change host lists as well, which were also available. So there's Change host, the core battalion that was gone away, the War Scroll battalion that's gone away now, and then you saw Archaon. So you said all those sorts of things. All right, Age of Sigmar 3, Joe, talk to me about that. Before we get into winners and losers for Tzeentch, how do you feel about Age of Sigmar 3 right now, with a tournament on the way? What are your pros, cons, like, where you at?
I think the rule system is really clean. I like pretty much all of it. It's going to be, I know talking with Jacob Berry and Joe Pagano, they were saying that like this game is about remembering, like who can remember the most and apply it properly during the game. That's what it was before, and it's exceptionally going to be that now in 3rd edition. Remembering when your monster abilities trigger, remembering your hero phase abilities, remembering if you get a command point every turn. Like just everything that's new on top of everything that was going on. There's going to be a lot more just to remember. And it's like all these cheat sheets that people keep making, the score sheets that people keep using. If we ever, if anyone ever makes an app to keep track of like your score during the game, it's all going to be super like necessary because there's so much more bookkeeping now when it comes to just the regular game, let alone adding in an army on top of it, and especially an army like Disciples of Tzeentch. I think my current Tzeentch list that I'm trying out, every wizard has 2 spells, so the hero section is like an entire page of text, and then it's the rest of the units like in the army. It's just there's so much more bookkeeping now on top of like as the faction and as the game. So
Yeah, so you think a lot of bookkeeping? Okay. What about the command abilities and those things? You got any hot takes on that? You're happy with it? You think bookkeeping's going to be higher? Having played 3 tournaments now, actually, already, I would agree with you. But I think things like the cheat sheet, which is in the link, and things like the scorecard. I think the scorecard is mandatory, by the way. Like a printout of that scorecard, which is free. It's included in the show notes if you're watching on YouTube. It's also on the Honest Wargame website under the AOS scoring blog, which I did yesterday, and it's also in the chat. I think it's mandatory at an event for you, like just for you, for your own mind. Like, oh, what did I choose last time? Like, I think that's really important to rack up the scores. But yeah, I think bookkeeping's 100%. Anything else that kind of strikes you about the game? Do you think shooting's better? Do you think combat's better? Like,
absolutely. Shooting is absolutely better. And like one of the only ways I think that's going to be able to counter some of the overwhelming shooting armies is going to be the god characters um, like Marathi or Archaon or I mean maybe Nagash, maybe Gotrek, but I mean like you've seen Gotrek die to overwatching pinks, right? Like there's going to be factions that can just do that, and the fact that they gave shooting another
tool.
phase to shoot in. Yeah, like another tool that allows you to shoot again. Like that's what made the bow snake so terrifying. And yeah, you can't have 20 bow snakes anymore in Daughters of Cain, but you can have 15 of them shoot 3 times now versus just twice.
Yes.
Which you're actually netting 10 more shots or like 5 more shots or whatever. And it's just like I know Helon and Lumineth, they get an extra shot if you're within 3 inches of them. So when you charge them, their units that are overwatching you get an extra shot apiece. So it's like they made shooting so much better. So the being able to project your threats and project your damage is going to be massive in this new edition. And your ability to move on top of that is going to be insane. So like movement, like me and you've always agreed, movement is key in both this and 40K, right? And this is going to be even better. So like Screamers being able to move 16 inches, the birds moving 12, 14 inches. I think it's 12, something like that. Now, like flight's going to be major. The spell to make you fly or being able to teleport is going to be really important on top, just because you need to either get into the things that can shoot you and lock them down, or project your power to them and shut them down just by killing them at range yourself.
And Tzeentch have probably got one of the best tools in the world in Gift of Change from Kairos, right? Yeah, like it's just perfect. Oh, yeah. Overwatch, thanks Jacob Berry for asking in the chat. Gorgeous to see you here. Jacob Berry is asking what Overwatch is. Obviously, if you play the Sigmar, it's a 40k term for the Unleash Hell, the standard shoot ability. For people who don't know, Kairos got the ability to obviously do 6 mortal wounds flat from his Gift of Change, and if he kills a model, he can pop a little spawn within 3 inches, which is so useful for shutting down shooting units. Very good.
and redeploys if you're trying to actually get into combat with something.
Yeah, of course. Oh yeah, of course. I mean, so good. Okay, so let's talk about winners and losers in Tzeentch then. Like, talk to me about the winners.
I think, I mean, it's just being a blanket term, like a blanket buff was Cogs, was the Cogs rework.
Okay, so do you want to tell people what
being
that
able
is?
to give every Yeah, so like I mentioned earlier, Cogs used to be +1 cast to 1 wizard that was within range of it. Now the range is shorter, so it used to be within like 9, you'd be able to manipulate the Cogs. Now it's anyone within 6, you get +1 cast or turn.
Mm-hmm.
in an army that benefits from spells being cast. This is incredible. In a new game system where you can add an extra spell to every wizard is incredible.
Having run Cogs in
I
Tzeentch for 9 tournament games, it's mental. Like, that's the only words for it. Like, it's truly mental. Like, it's like I would generate one game I generated 45 fate points in one game. Like, and we got to turn 4. We didn't even finish. Like, it's madness. So many.
The game that I've played so far with this, I've brought 3 endless spells. So Cogs, Geminids, and Shackles. And for 3 turns in a row, I forgot to cast Shackles and Geminids because I had cast so many other spells that I just I ran out of spells. Like, I ran out of wizards to cast the spells, and it was like 3 phases later in the game, I was like, oh, I have these as 2 other endless spells that I paid for and completely forgot. And it didn't matter because I had blown half the army off the table anyway. I was like, oh, okay, well, all right, here we are. It's too much. Like, it was really cool giving both Lord of Change and Fate Weaver an extra cast with their ability to eat the endless spell at any point during the hero phase to cast it again. And now I just don't have to worry about that, and it goes to everybody. It's unreal. Like, in an army so it was really important. Like, in my opinion, it was really important to summon a brand new Exalted Flamer every turn in 2nd edition Tzeentch, because you needed that forward. You needed to be able to project your power more, and just having an extra Exalted Flamer every turn allowed you to do that. I mean, you could easily be summoning a 10 squad of pinks every turn.
I don't think easily. No. I think, well, you could easily if you built for it. Like, yes. Yeah, if you so Blue Scribe for rerolls, and then Blue Scribes for rerolls, or you could go into Host of Plistus and get the rerolls via that way as well. But I agree with you. Yeah, if you build for it. Otherwise, because I've been running not the summoning version of the list. And I've just run sometimes just a change caster and Kairos, and I was like, I felt like I was like, I've got too many spells, especially the change caster's ability to roll a 9 and keep casting. Madness. By the way, if you want the most fun you can have in Tzeentch, you have a change caster, and then you stick him near Cogs, and then you just keep trying to proc 9s to cast. My max is 7. It was everything. He was a monster because that was another spell. It's just crazy.
I made mine a monster too.
He's just there like a little pink monster. He's like, I got 7 spells. You're like, amazing. It's 7 fate points. That's 5 away. That's 5 away from getting yourself that Exalted Flamer that Joe's talking about.
With one dude who's 135 points.
Yeah, with one dude. It's nuts. It's nuts. So yeah, Cogs, big win for. I think Tzeentch have gone up a level or so they lost change host. Obviously, we'll talk about that in a bit. Sorry, you carry on. I'm asking you. No. It's not me doing the reaction. So winner is Cogs.
I'm all about this.
Yeah, winner is Cogs.
Yeah. So that helped the entire hero section of it. The ability to push pinks instead of 20 max is unreal. I don't care if they can rally or not. I don't care if they can get life swarmed or not until you're below 30 brimstones. I don't care. You said you've played with 30 pinks and they never died.
Never died.
I could have told you.
And I wasn't using rally
2 weeks ago.
And I wasn't using rally. I was playing the worst version. You have to go below the starting unit size. So you have to go below 10
29 brims.
Yeah, 29 brims. One pink. Yeah.
Without that, I could have told you 4 weeks ago that was bent.
Well, it's not bent, though, because it doesn't do anything. The interesting bit is I built it to make it be as playable as possible, right? So, pinks, I gave them rend, so I took them in Eternal Conflagration. Yep. I gave them the rerolls from the Fate Master, so, I made them as killy as I could make them, and I was just running into 2-up armor saves being cool. Cool. Breaking upon rocks. It was useless.
But unless they're fighting a lore seeker, they're going to take whatever objective they're on, and potentially more than one, because there's 150 models there.
Oh, you can only take one with a unit.
Did they switch that now?
Yeah,
The new one? I missed that if I did. Okay. But still, it's they could do so, but they could have 150 models in that unit regardless, or is it
Max 60.
30? They can have up to 60, yeah. But that 60 can count as 120 with one of the agendas, like because if they get onto any other objective, they're going to take it from someone because there's just too many of them and they're never going to die. So it's like, yeah, like it might not kill anything, but if it doesn't need to, it doesn't need to.
Okay,
That whole unit can.
Sorry.
That whole unit can teleport with the I call him Mr. Scoot Scoot, but Luchon the Soul Seeker, because it's a wizard. He can teleport the 30-man pink squad 12 inches away, drop them on an objective. They don't necessarily need change ups at that point, just because they'll move with the boat every turn.
Yeah.
Until the boat gets dispelled. But like, I don't know. Like, that's just unreal. It's just a wall. And like, if you take that in the duplicitous host where you can't retreat from it, all of a sudden that's a 150 wound unit that you can't retreat from.
It's very good. I think that, again, that would work really well in team lists. So Cogs are a winner. Cogs are a winner.
Oh, yeah.
Pinks are a winner, irregardless of what happens with the FAQ. And I've played them the worst way possible, and I think that they're a winner. Yeah, if they let them rally from 10 into more pinks.
They went down 5 points, man.
Yeah, like if they FAQ them so that they can rally like some pedants want them to, then I don't even know what to say. Like, I don't know what to say. Like,
you almost don't even want to split. You just want to do like the 2+ to do a mortal wounds spite damage when they die.
Yeah.
And you'd be like,
all right, whatever.
Get down to 10.
I'm gonna banner them back, and then I'm gonna rally. Apparently, no one wants that. No one. I'm a Tzeentch player. Joe's a Tzeentch player. None of us want that to happen. All right. So pinks are big winners. What else is big winners in your opinion?
Let's see. I think the coalition rules actually is a big winner. So being able to take the Bray Shaman as a Tzeentch hero.
Can you explain it to us,
just
please?
for free now? Yeah. So how the coalition units work is similar to allies, but now that factions are based on the battle tome and not based on keywords. Being chaos, they're kind of like Cities of Sigmar, where they can take other units from different books. So 1 in 4 units can be a Beastman unit, and then they just gain the Tzeentch keyword. And 2 in 4 units out of your army can be Slaves of Darkness, and they have to have the Mark of Chaos keyword, and then they get given the Tzeentch keyword. And then they're just part of your book, as if just like they were in 2.0. But they just have more requirements that way. But now that the battalion is free, because you just get the Tzeentch keyword for your Beastman, you can just have the Bray Shaman with Fate Weaver without having it to be an ally, so you can take more expensive allies with the Bray Shaman. You don't have to take a battalion that doesn't do anything that you need it to, and you get, if you want, Ungor for screening, Ungor Raiders for the redeploy before the game starts. If you want, there might be something that hits better, or in beasts like Skyfires or Enlightened and Beasts are cheaper. So if you take them via the coalition, they're cheaper than taking them out of the Tzeentch book. So that aspect of the coalition side actually got a little bit better. And people including myself, bringing the Bray Shaman and Fate Weaver in an army where you can scout Fate Weaver 6 inches before the game starts, and then pull one of your opponent's units 2d6 inches closer to your army. Now whatever unit you picked is in range of all your other wizards, all your other combat, all your shooting, and you can really scalpel out what target you want to kill before they get to go. Especially if you're able to put all this in a 1-drop battalion, which you very easily can these days.
You very, very easily can. So, would you say the dynamics of the army have changed? Like, would you say that you think that you're still just building into shooting, you're still just building into combat, or you think you can do more mixed arms now?
Do a little bit more mixed arms, just because the Beastmen via coalition are now a little bit cheaper. So if you wanted to do a little bit more combat, you can. But I still think the basis of lists will be more or less the same. You're still going to see Archaon with Fate Weaver. he may have lost models. You may have lost points because of the points increase on these units in the army, but you're not worrying about battalions anymore. So I think my Tzeentch list, even though pretty much everything but Pinks went up in cost in my chain show Tzeentch list, the only thing that I changed was I replaced a Lord of Change with Be'lakor.
Right.
And otherwise it's the same list. You can't teleport anymore, but you never needed to in the first place, especially being host Arcanum and being able to scout your wizards. And now the deployment zones are usually closer anyway, so it's even better for lists like that. And yeah, the Tzeentch's ability to project power on a smaller board removes the need to teleport, I think.
Okay.
Whereas before it was kind of mandatory.
Which other units win big? So coalition rules. What else wins big?
My main thing has always been the wizards, like all just the heroes in here. I think, and honestly, I think that's what I'd probably cap it at the wizards and the pinks, at the biggest winners here, and then the coalition beastmen ones.
Would you say that the heroic actions have greatly improved Tzeentch? Like, because I mean, for instance, like one of the things I enjoyed at the weekend was sticking Mystic Shield on Kairos, and then if anyone attacked him, I would all out defense. So then he was basically on a 3-up save, ignoring Rend 1, or if you had Rend 2, he's back to the 4. So I was just like in a solid place. I was very happy with that. Like, it just meant that like some of my weaker characters was far more survivable. And again, I took the Fate Master with the generic artifact, the Amulet of Destiny. So he had a 5-up DPR. So 6 wounds on a 5-up meant that even like a Kairos 6 like Gift of Change, so 6 mortal wounds, wasn't taking him out in the mirror. So I was quite happy with that.
Yep. No, so the generic hero abilities, making your Lords of Change and your heroes, any of your heroes in general, but mainly the Lords of Change, able to bring themselves back up from being bracketed, because their spells are based on what their wounds are at, right? So now that you're able to heal, where you weren't before, they're able to, like, if your birds do get into combat or they do get shot at by something that you weren't trying to have them get shot at by or fought by, you can now bring yourself back up to their top bracket, which allows you to do, for the Lord of Change, 9 dice on 3-ups, do a mortal wound each, or Fate Weaver's 6 flat mortals, which after 3 or 4 wounds, it drops down to D6. So you really want that to be 6 at all times, and being able to +1 save, +2 save into Fate Weaver, or +3 save into Fate Weaver if you really wanted to. With +1 to wound in combat, you're now giving these monsters the ability to actually do better damage in combat. Fate Weaver is a 3-up to hit and wound for most of his profiles, and for one of his profiles, it's 3-up, 2-up. Mm-hmm. So now you're being able to give them all-out attack, so +1 to hit, so 2-up with Fate Weaver, and 2-up to wound with one of his weapons, and then if you the Finest Hour him, he's now a 2+2+ with 5 attacks at Rend 1, 2 damage. If he takes the Flaming Weapon spell, I suppose no, he can't take the Flaming, or no, yeah, well, Fate Weaver can have the Flaming Weapon because one of your generic heroes can have the Flaming Weapon spell, and he knows all friendly spells with an 18.
No, he only knows,
so he could be
War Scroll spells.
Is it War Scroll
spells?
Gotcha.
Yeah, so he can't know it. But Lord of Change can.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can make a fighty Lord of Change.
And he's still... Yeah, and I always used to I always took the sword anyway before, because if he got into combat, he'd need a way out, and the shooty stick didn't do much. It was too random with 2d6 attacks, and so having a Rend 2 3 damage weapon in his back pocket was always just nice. Now he could have a 4 damage weapon at Rend 2, hitting on 3s, wounding on 2s.
It's pretty impressive. What
with 4 attacks.
So just to go over it again, big winners, characters from Tzeentch generally, especially casting, and
just all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and big.
Well, even the non-casting ones now, because you can take the book like the book relic to make anyone a wizard.
Already wrote myself a list where my Fate Master is also a wizard. Yeah, and I was like, and then he's next to Cogs, so now he's a 2-cast wizard, and I'm like, what is this? What madness exists? Because that's 100%. Like, so that's giving full re-rolls to your 20 or 30 pinks in front of you. Being a 2-cast wizard, so he can stick Mystic Shield on them or on himself, and he's also a mortal as well, which gives him access to the mortal spells. Because most of the good wizards are demons. And then, like Joe says, you run out of spells. So if you're just like, cool, I'm just gonna get more spells, like it's insanity. So yeah, so characters super good. They're in a good position. Battle line pinks, you think, are in a great place as well. And then, so what are the losers? Do you think? Like what has gone badly for Tzeentch? Because I do think some stuff has gone badly. What do you think's happened?
So I think one of my favorite units before was the Exalted Flamer, and I still love the Exalted Flamer just because the shooting profile is great, whether he's in a turn configuration or not, just because he's rend 1, 18 inches, 6 attacks, D3 damage apiece, +1 hit if he's shooting a horde unit. Like, he's still really good, but he went up like 40 points, 30 points, something like that, like a lot more than I think he should have. Well, I mean, he's still worth the points, but now I think he was my summoning unit, my go-to summoning unit, and now I don't think I would bring him on purpose. It would just be as a summoning like unit choice. So I'd have 4 maybe in my box to summon in throughout the game via fate points. Just because having that extra shooting is nice, but his point cost for that shooting is not worth it anymore. So I think the price hikes on those were pretty.
There's also like there's also a really big kind of win that we didn't discuss in that the points of everything going up is great, but because of Cogs we get more summoning points, so we're already summoning more.
And Cogs went down.
Cogs went down, which is important, but like generally we're casting more spells, which means we're getting more summoning points, unlike other people. But the cost of our summons hasn't gone up, so it's still 12 points to summon that Exalted Flamer, right? But like we're getting those 12 points easier, but in-game value has also gone up. Those 12 points equate to more points on the board, right? Because they're more expensive. Yes. So there's more, like the economy is better. Like we're getting more and we're buying cheaper. Like it's going really well, like in my opinion.
And especially with that, and the buying cheaper part too, like a lot of our stuff went up. Sometimes 35 to 40 points, but we lost 180 point battalion on top of that.
Yes.
So our pinks went down 5 points, and we lost 180 point battalion, and Cogs went down. So like, if you brought 3 squads of pinks, you just saved 15 points. You saved another 40-ish points on Cogs, and you lost 180 point battalions. You have about 200 plus points to work with in points increases everywhere else.
So if go on, carry on. Sorry.
Yeah. So like realistically, so from before, like I said, my list basically stayed the same. Losing the 180 point battalion and the price hikes, I kept around the same model count, the same units, and I think my list I actually added 10 more pinks than I was using before. Because I think I had 2 squads of screamers and 1 squad of pinks, and now I have 2 squads of pinks and 1 squad of screamers. So I actually increased my model count by 50. Yeah. Between the last edition and the current edition. I just can't teleport. Oh no.
Question, because I think it's important to kind of like for people who might be new. Why is it you all were always taking pinks? Why weren't you taking Caracal-Acolytes? Because some people were taking some Caracal-Acolytes a bit. Like, so the battle line options in Tzeentch are, what are they, and why would you always see pinks mainly?
So we got Zangors, which are semi-fast foot combat troops, just combat specialists only, basically. We had Caracal-Acolytes, had a little bit of combat, had an 18-inch shooting attack, 4 up, or they 3 up now, something like that. No rend 1 damage. I think you could give them a battalion that gave them rend 1, and you could cast a spell that gave them +1 to hit. So yeah, they were 4 up, 3 up. You could cast a spell that came on their profile to make them a 3 up, 3 up, and then you could take a battalion or a faction that can make them rend 1. They were 100 points for a wizard that only could give themselves +1 to hit, unlike Lumineth Realmlord wizard units where they can take faction like lore spells. These guys can only have their +1 to hit spell or +1 rend, whichever it was. and the yeah, thanks, Angle. Yep. And but they were 6-up save or 5-up save, 6-up feel no pain if they had shields, which they were gonna have. But they were, yeah, Bravery 5, pretty low output unit unless you took a whole bunch of them and you had to specialize into them and take a battalion for them to be actually effective. Otherwise, they were just a cheap battle line, and you could find cheaper battle line elsewhere in the book. That being in Host Arcanum, like we said before, you could have Screamers. Screamers, I think, were one of the other battle line choices that you would actually see versus Pinks, just because they're fast and their faction that was based on them can make them actually hit pretty well and survive with the +1 save, +1 rend on that unit. And they could hunt monsters/wizards pretty well for the Screamers. So you'd see them every now and then. Flamers, they're only battle line in Eternal Conflagration, and that's where you'd want to see them anyway because they got +1 rend. But they're pretty expensive, and they're low model count. 3 models per unit at 120, 140, with 2 wounds apiece and a 5-up. So again, pretty fragile. And then you would have Pinks at the most expensive being about 220 points. But for every pink that you'd kill, you get 2 blues, and for every blue that you kill, you get a brimstone base. So your 10 pinks that you buy at 220 would be around 50 plus models throughout the game. And you would be able to bring back pinks if they died, and you could bring back, which would then give you every pink that you brought back with via spell or ability built into the War Scroll, or however you brought them back. You would add 5 models per time that you brought a pink back instead of just 1. And for 220 points, yes, it's expensive, but they shot, they casted spells, and they were a huge just model platform on the table.
Yeah, I think you've answered that really well. Okay, what about other losers, do you think?
My favorite one to talk about is on Disc, who's now an ally, because of how the Coalition rules work. Since he does not have the Market Chaos keyword, that's a prerequisite to getting the Tzeentch keyword. He doesn't get to just like have it because he has the Tzeentch keyword, so he's now just an ally. So he can't take lore spells anymore. Yes, he's cheaper than the one on foot, but it's because he's no longer in the faction that's based around the god that he's in. So until that gets FAQ'd or ratted or whatever, you say that he's out, and he's just an ally. So he doesn't get any of the lore spells. So I think he's probably the biggest loser because he would usually be the caddy for Demon Fire Rift. If you ever saw that spell in a list, it was either him or it was Archaon. One of the two. You never saw the foot one realistically unless someone needed points, and if you needed points, you were taking something else. So I think he was the biggest loser. Even though he went down in points, he's just not. He's now an ally, so he takes up space for like Be'lakor, which his summoning is good, the Gaunt Summoners, but I'd rather have Be'lakor. I'm going to take an ally that's over 200 points.
Yeah, and really doesn't bring much to the table anymore as well. And also, why would you bring, like, I get when you could, like, drop a unit of 10 pinks from a unit, so basically he was effectively free. Like, I mean, even 5 pinks, like, is 25 wounds, and it's a thing. But yeah, like if you were like Jacob Berry saying, it's like if you're going to ally anything in, it's going to be Be'lakor. Like if you want that like crazy control deck, but then you might flip it the other way. You might go Legion of the First Prince, start with Be'lakor, include all the things that you get there because you get a teleport. That's one of the things that I found a little bit different.
And then you would get the guy on Disc anyway.
Yeah, right. So like
he's not in Tzeentch though. That's why he lost. Fuck him. He's out of the book.
Yeah. And also I don't know why you wouldn't play in Tzeentch at the minute, because Tzeentch has got some of the best summoning available in game right now. I wouldn't be surprised if we see an FAQ for summoning, because you can go crazy. Like I say, I haven't even tried to write a summoning list yet, but you 100% can write yourself a summoning list, and you can go crazy with the points. One of the questions that we had asked Joe, because is that all of your losers, do you think, generally?
Yeah, I think everyone else, like the Beastmen went up in points, but then they went down in points in the Beastmen book, and you can coalition them in. So you just take them currently, take the coalition versions, because nothing's stopping you from taking those. And then everything else in the book mainly is a wizard or a hero, or it could be battle line. So I think the price hike on blues and brims kind of sucks, but the price decrease on pinks makes up for it. You're never going to take a blue or brim squad now anyway. Like, they're just too expensive. And Screamers are still good, but they went up another 20 points. They probably, like, I would say that they definitely deserved it because they're really good and really cheap. But that's kind of a bummer. But it's not the end of the world. So that's a loss, but they didn't lose anything, especially since everything else went down or you saving on the battalion anyway. So
okay. So one of the most competitive armies in Age of Sigmar 2 last year, GHB 2020. Joe, how do you rate them now? Do you think they're big winners, or have they only got better?
Yeah, I mean, losing the battalion might bum some people out. But as a friend of ours, Dan Bradshaw, has said that if you're nothing without the suit, you don't deserve it. So if you're nothing, like if you can't play Tzeentch without change hosts, like maybe play something else. Like the army is good enough as is. It didn't need change host, and it especially these days with +1 cast, +1 spell per dude, cheaper pinks. Like the army is so good anyway that you're sitting as a top tier book. You're fine. You don't need to teleport. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
It definitely came out on top. Definitely.
I would say the one thing that it feels like a weakness is that you really raw output is still an issue. And if you get paired into spell ignore, which is something that can happen, then you lose a lot of your. And it's still a mid-range book. It's still a slow book if you don't take stuff to make it fast. But unlike everything else, it can build a magical castle better than anyone, I think, because of the pinks. But how it plays, so it plays the primary scenario pretty well. I'm not sure it plays the secondary super well because you can't commit. And I do wonder if it's got an issue with armor in the game. Whether or not arm might go through it. So we'll see how it balances out in the rub, basically. Also, some pretty key. I would say Kairos is probably, if I can throw in 10 cents here, Joe. I would say that Kairos is the winner from the edition, the whole winner. And I'll give my reason as to why. When you're trying to do a battle tactic, I'm going to go do conquer, which is I'm going to go grab that objective off my opponent. I've got close, yeah? I need a 3-inch charge. Boom. I've rolled a 3. I've rolled a 1 and a 2. No, you haven't. You haven't got the model on the objective. I win 2 victory points. Well, you don't get 2. He's the best denial of a battle tactic available, I think, in the whole game right now. That's going to be the key, in my opinion. We'll see. We'll see. Maybe
and he
not,
always was.
Yeah, it's great, but now it's worth more, I think.
Yeah, because there's more missions now. Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Because the secondaries are more important. The secondaries are once per turn versus once per game, and the fact that he's even better, he's more survivable. His dice flip is going to affect more things. Obviously, only one thing per game, but if that one thing is the primary and their battle tactic, and potentially their army mission is insane, and he's healing every turn if he needs to be. So yeah, he's probably next to Marathi the best 400 points that you can spend on something.
Okay,
he's more than 400, but
yeah, I think
besides Marathi, I think it's like him and Marathi are right here for sure.
Also, like Mandolis is saying, because I've done this already, turning Nagash into a failed casting roll on his first spell, unbelievable. Unbelievable tech.
I definitely have a friend locally who's like, so you're going to be playing Tzeentch, right? And I'm like, yes, I'll be playing Tzeentch. He's like, well, I guess I can't bring Nagash then. And I'm like, yeah, that's true.
I mean, because
he's refusing to play Nagash because one person locally has Fate Week.
Yeah. So just to let you know why, if you roll a double 1 on a casting roll, then what happens is you can't cast any more spells and you take D3 mortal wounds. Now, Nagash casts 8 spells and he's able to generate loads of spells, which is obviously big thumbs. Big thumbs. Generally. However, if he rolls a 1 and a 3, Kairos got the ability to change the result of a dice roll. Now, it's not every dice roll. There are certain things. It's on his war scroll. You can go read it on the app before it goes away, sad face. And you can I know. As soon as you see him roll a 1, you can turn the other one to a 1. It shuts down all of his casting, which is massive for the rest of the turn. And for a 1,000-point model, it means that you're really shutting them down in a pretty significant way. So
he went down 5 points. He's 995 now.
Yeah. Okay. Oh wow. Oh, thank God. 1,000 was way too many points. Right, Joe, talk to me about lists in Age of Sigmar 3 for Tzeentch. What are you thinking?
So what I ran before was Host Arcanum Change Host with Fate Weaver. What I'm running now is Host Arcanum Node Battalion with Fate Weaver. So it's Fate Weaver, um, Fate Weaver Changecaster, Blue Scribes, Curseling, because he's an extra 2 spells from the mortal side, which is nice. Ally and Bellacore, 2 squads of 10 pinks, a squad of 3 Screamers, Shackles, Geminids, and Cogs. And all that fits into the 1-drop battalion plus the Warlord auxiliary one that gives you the either or option to take an extra spell. To take an extra enhancement, which you take as an extra spell. So everyone's got 2 extra spells instead of just the 1, and you're a 4-drop list. And you can scout D3 flying units before the game starts. Fate Weaver is incredible for that with a 4-cast monster these days. Plus you have Bellacore, and the only thing I missed in that list, I think, was the +1 to cast for Lord of Change, so it'd be interesting to see if you could find that somewhere else. But that's my current list. You're going to see Fate Weaver and Archon list still, because they're still that good. And yeah, the hero phase sounds like a lot, but once you get it down, like, you can go through it pretty quick.
So fast.
And the rest of your turn's nothing. Like, even if you don't get through that fast, like, your rest of your turn's nothing. So you're like, here's my whole hero phase. All right, I move 3 things, pass, and that's all you need. So that, I think the Arcane list will still be around. You're going to see a ton of Fate Weaver lists. The list is going to start with Fate Weaver, fill in the rest. That's it. You're going to see 70 pinks armies, with an army with 2 30-man squads of pinks and then another 10-pack of pinks, 1,500 points. Pick a couple heroes. You're going to see it. Like, I know you're shaking your head.
Glorious. No, I'm not against it. I'm only for it. You can do. I'm going to hold 2 objectives. Oh no. See, actually, I think 2 30s is weak, but like, because you can CP, so you can make 1 immune to battle shock forever. So that 1 30 is good. I think another 30 is unnecessary, and I think actually 30 is unnecessary. I think 20 is fine. You could do 20-20. You save yourself 400 points. Yeah, and then you could also remind yourself. Someone will be like, "Oh my God, what have you got?" You'll be like, "I've got 20-20. Remember the worst year of all of our lives. This is what I've got on the board. It's the worst game of your life." But sorry, Joe, please continue.
I mean, people are talking about Guild of Summoner. Someone asked if it's going to be good in this edition. Yep. I think summoning Lords of Change only as your only ability to summon is not good. I don't think you have enough forward projection from that. But if you are taking Guild of Summoners and you happen to have 70 pinks, you do have a relic, Rob, that's a 12-inch Holy Within Ignore Battle Shock.
I know there is. I know. I just didn't want to talk about it. I thought if I didn't mention it, no one would run 60 pinks. Like, that's what I'd mention. That's all I'd say. I don't know. Also, the board presence of... they're 32 mil bases, right? So the board presence of pinks is mental. Like, it's such a massive unit. Like, just...
And to be honest, it's one of the best units to... If you don't want to deal with coherency, like the new coherency rules, pinks are like the best for it, because you got your 2 little triangles on the end, and then your whole line across. And when you lose a pink, you put 2 blues in the way. Done. You're still in coherency. You're fine. Don't worry about it. Yeah. Go about your business.
Yeah, it's madness. Madness available for Tzeentch. Okay, so thanks, Joe. Appreciate having you on the show. We can find you. You write articles for Goonhammer, right? That's correct?
Yep, I do. So I'm the joke on Goonhammer, and then JOEK, because it's punny, and then my Patreon Titan Wargaming as well. I've got that.
There you go. So you can go and find out. Or Joe's also going to be playing at an event this weekend, so if you are somewhere in the Minnesota area, you're in Minnesota, then you can go and hang out with him. I'm sure you've already seen him at all of the Katy Perry after parties, which I imagine Joe attends religiously.
It's Katy Perry and MCR. You know how it is.
You know it. Plus mashup singles of that. So Joe, thanks very much for being on the show. If you guys have enjoyed this is one of many faction reaction shows where I talk to players who know what they're talking about from the different factions, so they can give me their insights. There's still loads to talk about with all of the different factions, so I'll be coming back to these later on. We've got another round of FAQs.
How many are you through?
Pardon me?
How many are you through?
We've only done 5. There's like 20 to go.
Good luck.
Yeah, I like it.
Simba,
like it's really fun. Like listening to we've had you've been amazing, obviously, but like everyone who we've had on, like Math Mallow's only been playing Sylvaneth for like 2 years straight. Like this guy is he knows every single thing always. So you've got Smorgan who's done 100 reps of games in the past year. You can't really ask for better. I'm learning. I'm listening and learning. This is I'm just get to ask the questions. Everyone else is on the podcast why didn't you ask this bloody question? And I'm good point. So I'm learning. So if you guys do have questions that you'd think you'd like to ask, if we ever revisit these, or we do them more in depth, which is the plan in the future, I'd like to hear about it. Obviously, you can leave them in comments. You could get to us at Twitter, on Facebook. This is a live Twitch show, so do that. And it's all been brought to you by everyone on the Wargamer Patreon because we don't take sponsorship.
Rob is live. He's not a figment of our imagination.
Yeah. This is all it is. Thanks, Joe. It's been a delight. I'll see you guys soon. If you are watching live right now, quick one. I will be back at midday with Mr. Budtastic Guy. He's on a journey to a tournament, and he's going to talk about his experiences doing that. Looking for his first 3-2.
We like Budtastic Guy.
Yeah, we like Budtastic Guy. He's focusing. His first 3-2 at an event is what he's going for. That's what he's focusing on.
Is he your friend or your pal?
He's my bud.